Hello and welcome to the Complete Review with me, Josh Dixon.
And me, Ryan Croughan. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm alright, I'll be honest. I've had better days. But it's
Okay.
good. It's a good day. You know what? Why is it a good day, Josh?
Because we are here in Thornton.
It's a lovely place.
It is a delightful
It's got a fantastic
little
closed
village.
library.
Yeah, it's great. We're also in the same location.
I know, same room talking to each other.
Which you'd be amazed at how much. It'll be interesting to know what you think. I think it makes a huge difference having two people in the same room for this kind of stuff.
It's a better audio quality, which I'm sure you've noticed already.
Yeah, the problem is with my laptop, it's really sort of tinny. We're working on that. We're buying a microphone.
We may have got that sorted for next week, actually. Hopefully. I'm not sure.
Yeah, if she's letting us use it, which it's thank you to Izzy.
Thank you there. So, Josh, The Escape.
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, should we give a synopsis?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Right. So, The Escape. Susan's gone back to the TARDIS for some anti-radiation drugs.
We can't call them drugs.
She gets some anti-radiation stuff.
And anesthetic.
And yeah, whatever. She gets She gets.
She gets.
Susan, she does the gets. Susan gets some anti-radiation drugs at the TARDIS, and she walks out of the TARDIS to be interrupted by this man with blonde hair who she describes as perfect. And he's like, "Have you taken the drugs yet?" She says, "No." He's like, "Oh, what are you doing? I left them for you. Don't be, why are you so afraid?" Anyway, he discovers that Susan and her friends are prisoners, and Susan discovers who the Thals are. These people have been in a war with the Daleks for quite some time.
But not anymore.
Not anymore, because
anymore.
the war's over. Now they're just on, opposite sides of the world. Of
Thals
Scotland.
just like farming.
Yeah,
They just farm.
That's all they do now. They're essentially Farmville in the 60s. So they send Susan back.
But with better hair.
They send... It depends on your Farmville character. They send...
Played Farmville.
Oh, you're missing out. They send Susan back to the Daleks, and she's there like, "Oh, the Thals want to cooperate with the Daleks. We should capitalise on this." And the Daleks like, "We could get them to come here." And they get Susan to write a letter that says, "Oh, we've left supplies and everything." Oh, that'll get them.
It's really nice.
Okay, it's really nice, isn't it?
Yep.
Seems really nice of them. That's nice of the
How
Daleks.
nice of them. I mean, I thought the Daleks were like meant to be our villains, but no, they've been
But
really nice.
no, they're providing food and a good home. And
Adoptaphile.com.
yeah, adoptaphile.com. So, anyway, they get Susan to write that letter. The Thals get the letter and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to go over. There's peace in the world at last." There's all sort of like other Thal bants that we'll discuss later. I'm not
Yeah,
putting
we
that into
won't
the
we won't put it in
synopsis.
here.
And so, they're in the prison, our four favourite friends, and they're like, "We have to get out of here." But they don't say that yet because they realise there's a camera on the wall and the
Oh my
Daleks can
God.
hear everything. So they stage a fight, they knock the camera off the wall, and they get ready to escape.
Do they escape?
Yes.
I think it's not a spoiler because it's in the title.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a spoiler, but I thought the idea of this is that people are meant to have watched it already.
Exactly, and if you haven't by now, we've just ruined another episode for you, as
It's
we've
a
ruined it every
review,
week.
of course it contains spoilers.
This is why I just want to make this clear. I don't think I've ever said this, but if you actually come here and expect us to withhold information about the episode we're reviewing, not necessarily the future, because we don't want to be like talking about Matt Smith right now or anything like that. But I mean, what's the point of us reviewing it? I mean, I don't understand why people would come to this and be like, "Oh, don't spoil it for me." And why would you even watch it if you've not seen it yet? Like,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
the point? I don't get it.
Yeah, internet trolls.
I don't think we've had any yet.
Shout out to the Mad Texan, who's been quite supportive.
Yeah, shout out to the Mad Texan. We really like you.
I mean, this was a while ago. You might have stopped watching by now.
You might have stopped watching by now, yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, Josh, The Escape. I first want to say, we haven't addressed this yet. Now, I imagine that you're thinking there's a very big elephant in the room.
No.
There is, though, because we have already talked about The Escape, haven't we?
Oh, yes. We've
And-
talked about The Escape before.
And something went wrong.
Yes, it will be released as a B-side.
Yeah.
We reviewed it, and basically we got into a massive argument about the fact...
It wasn't really argument.
No, there was
Quandary.
no... There was, we went on a tangent. We talked about for a long time the fact that the Thals...
No. We won't mention it. We'll come to it later. We talked about something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deutschland, Deutschland.
We talked about something which was meant to be a passing point, and it became the whole review.
Yeah.
So the episode became a point basically about 2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
And we thought that really wasn't fair on the episode because it's a lot more than that.
But you see, you thought this conversation just going to make people want to listen to that review.
But they can. It will be released. Do not worry. It will be released. You will get it sometime. When you first watched this, what did you think? And when did you first watch it?
Very first time I watched this was when I first bought the trilogy of DVDs, the Beginnings collection. So this was about 3-4 years ago. I watched it. I thought it was good. I wasn't wowed by it. At all.
I was waiting for one of us to go, wow, then.
Wow. I thought I always thought this was a good episode, actually. And watching it again, I think it's a very good episode.
When you watched it originally, though, the same issues that we're about to discuss now and what plagued us in our first attempt at this review, how did they come about when you first watched it? Or did they not touch your mind at all?
They didn't touch my mind, except maybe the fact that it was called The Escape, and the escape doesn't happen until the end, but in hindsight, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I think that's quite clever.
I think that's the point, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Up for debate. But when you watched it this time, and we've watched it twice now,
Yeah.
what's your overriding impression of it?
It's very good. There are some bits of clumsy direction.
Yes.
But the characters, I think, are on cracking form. We get a good glimpse into both the Thals and the Daleks, and there's a real sense of tension and the sense that the episode is going somewhere at this point.
That's right. Do you think we've moved from setup to development now, or are we still setting up? Because I think still
there's a little bit of setup,
yeah,
but it's good kind of setup because it's leaving you wondering, what's going to happen between the Thals and the Daleks? Because they said they've left food, but we know that the Daleks are evil and they've got bad intentions.
How do we know? We don't. Do you think if you watched this first time, you would watch it knowing the Daleks are evil, though?
Yeah, I don't think
that's our context thing, though. Would you watch it? And
no,
even if
you watched it for the first time, just the way, I don't think you'd watch it and go, yeah, the Daleks are going to be all friendly and this is going to go well. They took out Ian's legs, for God's sake.
Yeah, but was it an act of self-defense?
I don't think so. All he did was try and run away. He didn't charge at any of the Daleks with a hammer.
If you were locked yourself away in a nuclear bunker because you'd been at war and then you see some people, wouldn't you react badly? Wouldn't you be terrified?
You've got a point about yes, that's true. But in a childlike perspective, which a lot of people are watching this with.
You see what I mean? What about adults?
Yeah, but even adults, it's quite clear in this show with the way that they've been designed. It's the whole stereotypical, if they look unfamiliar and evil, and this is something that says a lot about our world, if they look unfamiliar and evil, they're clearly the villains. They've been set up as the villains.
But isn't that the point of the story, especially with the Thals, about the whole, your mutations but you look perfect? Isn't that the whole point? It's also, the whole thing is subverting that.
Yes, it is. It is subverting that, but I don't think you'd have got that yet watching this episode.
Okay, I take your point. Should we just move straight in and say about the nature of the title, which you said was quite good?
Yes, The Escape.
I think there are 3 escapes in this episode.
Go on, list the escapes.
The first escape is, as the title card comes up, Susan actually escapes the TARDIS, and so it depends how you view the title. So I always think titles of this period of the show, you either get really literal titles like Forest of Fear, which are a bit rubbish, because they're going to be in a forest at some point, and it might be a bit scary. You know what I mean? It's very literal. And it was pretty grim, dark, bloody, mental. But this, which we get a lot of Hartnell titles coming up, is a bit more interpretive.
Yes.
The escape is either, as was the Survivors, interestingly, the episode before. The escape is either, for me, Susan at the start, you are wondering from the last episode, will she escape the TARDIS? Will she go out? Will she face her fear and go back through the hell that she walked through, i.e. the jungle?
Yeah.
Are you taking that, or do you think I'm reading into this a bit too much?
I'm not so sure, because I think she was always going to go back. She was,
but that's the question you're left with, isn't it? At the end of the last episode, she's got to go through all this terror again.
Yeah, she has to go through all this terror again.
And we said it was a good cliffhanger. He did his job.
I wouldn't call that an escape.
Okay, fair enough. The other escape being the Dalek coming out of the final. This is interesting. It's the thing that happens at the start, as I said, and the thing that happens at the end. And at the end of the episode is the Dalek escapes its shell, and it's the first time. Spoiler alert! Sorry, that we see the Dalek mutant.
Yes,
it is a physical escape from something that we thought up until this now point We had no idea there was anything in there. We had one line which was, "Do you think there's anything inside them?" And Susan laughs, so we're like, "Oh, well, it's probably rubbish, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And then we see that.
Okay, I agree. I sort of agree with that, but I don't think it's what they were going for.
But I think we can both agree on the point of the escape is, and in our first attempt at this review, I was a bit pissed off by it, and I was like, it's just delayed gratification. It's just we know the escape's going to happen. Why does it take so long to happen? Ugh, awful titling. They should have called it the Thal debate or something a little bit more. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a better title. Could you give it a better title?
I would call it Muscle, Muscle, Muscle. The Thals story.
I would call it Barbara Makes Mud and Other Stories.
Yes, I like it.
I like it. No, but what the escape we were talking about is through the episode, we know they're going to escape, and it is when they go do it, and then they finally do it.
Well, maybe that's the point. It's keeping the audience
That's the
thinking,
yeah.
yeah, because when it comes, it's a brilliant scene, and I didn't mind waiting for that. If it came, it builds up to it nicely.
But it depends on what sort of viewer you are, doesn't it?
Yes.
Because you could watch this and know the escape's going to happen, and you're like, I'm enjoying the build up to this. How is it going to play off? Because there's all that scene with them working it out, which is the point, isn't it? It's delaying the point of escape, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? What's this?
Yeah.
Or you watch it and you just go, this is boring, get to what you promised.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, how do you take that?
Well, it depends if you want some exciting ride, which I guess at this point maybe you do. At this
But I
point in
thought the
story,
Survivors was quite exciting because it was introducing a whole new race. It was being like,
It
look
was,
at all
but
this.
That was exposition kind of exciting. We're getting to the point where we're going to run out of things for exposition, and
Which I guess is the problem with the files in this. Maybe it is a bit too methodical.
it is. But we had to introduce the files. I say we. They had to introduce.
Of course.
It had to be. Done.
Do you think this story would work? And this is, I'm just bringing this up now before we go into the files. Do you think this story would work better without them, or as you said, are they needed? And if you've seen this episode, I think you can understand why, because their scenes are written in a very different tone to almost everything around them.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think that juxtaposition? And I think it's very deliberate. It's very deliberate juxtaposition. But do you think it's needed?
Yeah, because it's a very human kind of interaction.
But is it human in a Shakespearean way?
Yes, it is. But I think that's the point. It's meant
yeah.
to be this sort of wordy and kind
verbose.
Yeah, almost lyrical style.
Yes.
Of which completely contrasts with the Daleks. You could argue that the prisoners are already contrast enough to the Daleks.
Which
but
exactly, that's my point. Are they needed?
Given what this episode sets up to do, which is to identify the two groups, I think you had to give the Thals something.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's interesting that we bring about a third party in the third episode.
Yeah.
It's interesting that we got that. Episode 1 is about the Doctor and his crew. Episode 2 is about the Daleks and what they're doing. And then we come into episode 3 and we bring in another set of people.
Yeah,
and
we've managed to introduce all three in their own little episodes, which means surely
give
now...
them time to shine, yeah, exactly.
we can have a very exciting conflict.
And I think that's about what we're going on to next. It's about big plot stuff.
I think it's left with so much promise. You've got the Thals who are going towards the city, the Daleks who are in a bit of a crisis because their prisoners are escaping when they're planning stuff, and what's going to happen to the TARDIS gang.
Do you think we are already doing the Doctor Who tradition of bringing in a monster and then parodying them? Because this episode, the Daleks in it, not the Daleks themselves, but the whole Ian gets in a Dalek thing. And I'm going to just throw this to you quite simply. You bring in this really terrifying villain. They're brilliantly shot in The Survivors. And the first thing they do is, let's just little lid, get someone to make jokes about them, jokes about the voice. Aha, what larks. Does it undermine them?
But I think that's needed because of the range of audiences we have, from the bit where they open up the casing and they look inside it.
Should we leave that, or should we go into that now?
Let's go into that now. There's a moment where they open the lid and they eat a wonderful shot with the Doctor and Ian. They open the lid. You can't see what's inside it.
We never see.
No.
Well, bar them.
You see a little tentacle, but they both look at it. And you see their faces, and all you see is a reaction. And they go, Susan and Barbara, go somewhere else.
Yeah. Go, they make an excuse, but it's one of those lines where and it's interesting, in a modern television show, that line of go out and look outside and check for stuff would be made more clear that they're being deliberate they'd make it more clear that they're wanting to get them out of the way to not look at it. Here, you can read it both ways, and that's better because it's a heat of the moment thing. You would try and be like, oh, just get out there, if you see what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, and not being able to see it makes it a bit more terrifying.
I don't think we should... I'm going to throw this out there now. I think as soon as you see a Dalek mutant, it kind of ruins the prowess. I think
definitely. The mystery about it.
It's dead now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's dead from a modern audience perspective, which is why we've got
a little tentacle was a little bit kind of
do you think it was gratuitous?
I think it wasn't nice.
I think it was needed at this point to establish, and it is a big moment. It is one of those Hartnell cliffhangers, as I mentioned. It's not a slow burner, it's a big oh my word moment, which seems to be becoming associated with the Daleks, don't they? As sort of the Dead Planet cliffhanger. It's one moment after another, which kind of explains why they caught on so much, because that cliffhanger to a kid is probably a lot more exciting than Cal's face coming onto the screen.
In their pants.
They would be. They'd be wow. One interesting thing about the way it's shot, that scene, is the close up on Ian. I think that's very nice, and it establishes that. And then when we have them, the moment where they look at each other, it would be very simple to do that as a mid shot, and have them both looking up at each other. Instead, it's played out in long, in wide, and it makes it a bit more airy, a bit more cold. It's just we don't go in too close. It's like we're keeping a distance from them, and it's letting the emotion come out from the space, if that makes sense. I'm struggling to get this point across. I'm sure you get what I mean.
This was a close-up that was done well.
We'll come on to that in a moment. Yeah, Ian's close-up was really good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the acting that makes it good rather than direction.
No,
or is it how it holds on it just the right amount of time?
Yeah, it was a good close-up, I think. It was one that was needed and well utilised.
It's interesting we don't get one on the Doctor, and that's what I was about to come on to, because the Doctor and Ian looking at each other, as I said, is a mid-shot. It's like quite a wide shot. And it kind of leaves it in the air a moment for you to go, ooh, do you think we needed a close-up of the Doctor's face, or would that be gratuitous?
The Doctor's seen worse.
Yes.
I think you could argue, and
it's our human connection again,
Ian
isn't it?
is our human connection, yeah. I think it's more profound to have a close-up on him, which is maybe why they chose to do that.
Yes, back to the point. Self-parody. I mentioned that. Do you think the Daleks have gone? We've already started self-parodying them, and you said it was necessary.
Yes.
We went on a massive tangent there. Sorry. You said it was necessary. Why did you think it was necessary? You mentioned about audience.
Oh yes, I just said after the moment we just had when they opened the lid.
Why do you think that's needed?
Because with a range of audiences and with an episode that's already very bleak, we're talking about radiation poisoning. You got the Nazi analogies that are running through it. I think it needs stuff like this. It needs like relief to keep everyone watching with such a broad audience.
But is that pandering to your audience?
I think they have to at these early stages. It was such a... This is their science fiction show, something that famously, Warwick... Who was it? Who's the geezer? Who's the geezer who said no science fiction monsters?
Oh, no, BEM. Sidney Newman.
Yeah, he was like...
Who created Doctor Who, no like, bug-eyed monsters.
Which is this episode going on.
This is the most sci-fi Doctor Who has done up until this point, because the first two episodes were more about science and exploration, and it was all a bit more feasible. Here, as soon as we're being in a Shakespearean race fascinated by crops, this is where we get the most Star Trek envisioning of science fiction Doctor Who's done so far. So it was probably the most risky episode so far. Maybe that's why we come off a bit cold on it. Not massively cold, but a bit colder than we were before, because it's a bit jarring, maybe?
It is a little bit. I think it had to be dealt with carefully. So to answer your question, that's why I think it's necessary to parody the monster. If they were at a risk of taking it too seriously and it falling flat, if you parody something, it's sort of self-analytical kind of... it's sort of on stage what is quite a Brechtian effect. So
explain that.
Brechtian effect, things like alienation, like you can bring something up to a serious moment, and then there's a moment of gestus, which is this comical moment that happens straight after and disillusions you from the fact that you're watching this, and in this sense it's used for different reasons, but in this sense I think it keeps you watching and not taking it too seriously in a way that doesn't work for you.
The reason I'm bringing this up is because the Daleks in this episode, there's a lot of I think they're quite, don't take this the wrong way, and I'm using the right way, says pathetic.
Oh my god!
Do you get what I'm...
Yeah.
I don't mean pathetic as they're rubbish, they're crap. There's a certain... The fact that they struggle so much to understand human emotions is It's funny, but it's funny to us, not in the context of the situation. Well, it is to Susan, but you do see what I mean. It's, It's deliberate, but we're not laughing.
But they're good moments. They are good moments.
No, I'm not saying cut them out. I think they're essential. I think they're some of the best moments in this episode. For example, when the moment we really enjoyed is with the Daleks wondering what that word is at the bottom of the sheet. And it's, oh, Susan, that's my name. And then Susan laughs and the Dalek shouts, stop that noise.
Yeah.
And it's a really funny line. But this is where we stand on Doctor Who and comedy. This is the comedy where it works.
Yes.
Because it's essential to let the scene work. It's not gratuitous.
No.
And that's why I was asking the whole Ian getting the Dalek thing. As a concept, it is a bit silly. Is it a bit gratuitous? Because it doesn't really add to the Dalek's character other than, oh my god, there's a mutant inside. If you see what I mean.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
But I like it. I like it. I mean, personally, I like it. I was meaning your view on that.
I also like it.
Well, there we go. We're sorted. I also think it's key because this episode, we get to see, and it's something we very rarely see in future Doctor Who, everybody works together in that final scene. And you could argue they've become a little family.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, and I think they have. It's really nice. That's
they never talk about it, which is good.
They don't need to.
Hey Susan, have you noticed how close we've gotten to the Doctor recently? Why, yes, Barbara, it is, isn't it? You know, it's. They just do stuff
it's
now
just there
and acknowledge it.
Feel it. It's one of the reasons why the escape scene works so well. It's all of them working together, and they have a little bit of banter.
Have we seen this before?
Not as joyfully.
No, because
they work together in the cave of in the
Firemaker.
Yeah, in the Firemaker,
that was more. We've got to work together to get us out, rather than we've got to work together to get us as a group out.
Yeah.
It was more out for themselves in the Firemaker. Now it's a group effort, and that's what I mean. I think it's a very deliberate choice to see them. Everybody says, and I know we'll come on to this, that the brink of disaster, the end of the Edge of Destruction episode, is where they come together as a group. I think this is where we really see it. That's just where they sort of... the nail is in the piece of wood. The Edge of Destruction is where they hammer that nail down, but it's already in there, to pardon a really bad analogy there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Let's move on.
Did you notice anything about the direction of this episode?
Yes.
Did you?
I did. And I'll tell you what, close-ups at the end of the Thals scenes.
Go on.
All right, they just lingered for a little bit too long and tended to ruin the scene. Because the Thals, there were quite interesting interactions that would intrigue you. But then it would end with one of the characters just staring out and going, what are we going to do now?
I think it's a 1960s attempt at a hero shot.
Yes.
And it kind of ruins the whole pace of the scene.
Yeah.
Because it's suddenly... I feel that the director hadn't properly thought about it because it kind of ruins the feel. It tries to make it something that it isn't. It's more of a sort of philosophical, quiet discussion, and it turns it into this intentful glare of, we're going to do this. And he did it twice. There's one with Aladon and there's one with Temesis, the old guy who you said looked like William Hartnell, but with blonde hair.
Yeah.
And they both try it, and it kind of falls a bit flat. I don't know if that's blame on the actors or the director.
Maybe a bit of both. But then the acting from the Thals is not as strong as the acting from our TARDIS gang.
No, all the Daleks.
Daleks, to be fair.
The Daleks are great in this. The vocal performance, they're very good.
Yeah.
I think not enough credit is given to them because it's hard to make a line, as we said, like the Susan line sound funny when you're also trying to do it deadly seriously. Because to them, to the Daleks, they're acting totally rationally. It's totally normal. But if it's only to us hearing that, we go, oh, that's a bit odd.
Oh, that's a bit...
That's a bit weird.
I agree.
What do you think about... Well, I was going to say this. Richard Martin has taken over as director for this episode, who was a new guy at the time. He was an actor who came in to directing. This was one of his first TV pieces he directed. Christopher Barry, who did the previous two, was a bit more of a safe pair of hands. He'd worked in the industry a lot more, and that's why I think the first two episodes... There's a lot more shots, as you say, that are iconic, like the classic shot from The Survivors, where we pull back to reveal the dark. There's a lot more big ooh moments. I think this is a bit more workmanlike in the nicest possible way in terms of the direction. Nothing really stands out to make me go ooh as a shot.
Yeah, it works. There is a nice shot when when she has to write the letter and there's a Dalek every corner.
Yeah, I was going to say, this starts repeated a couple of times throughout the episode, and normally there's Daleks, as we know there's 4 Daleks in this episode.
Yes.
We established there's only 4. When there's 3 of them around Susan, the camera takes the place, and it does this twice in 2 Dalek scenes, of the 4th Dalek. So we're sort of like the 4th Dalek, in on their discussions. We're not watching them, we're in with it. We're in with their discussions. And that's quite a nice technique. I like it when he does that. And this, Richard Martin, he will become sort of the Dalek director. And you can see as he does more Dalek stories, he works out more interesting ways to shoot them. Here we have the first crane shot of a Dalek, and you mentioned there's a bit of wobble on it at the end.
There is, but the fact that he's gone for that shot is impressive.
Yeah, and it's a crane that comes in, we see them move, and it pans around, and it's, as we said, there's a balleticism to the Daleks, and you see this throughout, it's all about
Which is
movement.
what he wanted. It's
Exactly.
It makes
it. He did, because he was inspired by ballerinas with long dresses, and you couldn't see the legs. And it's nice to see that communication between the writer and the director come across.
Yes.
And that's quite a nice way to do that. So, Josh, would you like to tell me what you think of the first innuendo in Doctor Who?
Oh, there's a double meaning for you. Yeah, it's pants. It was a very human thing. It worked in that context.
And this is, I think it was a very good line. And I think the Thals. I'm just going to pitch this to you now. This is my one issue of debate, shall I say? The Thals.
Yes,
You said that was a very human moment,
I did.
and there's a lot of that going through their scenes. But do you think that the more Shakespearean dialogue that some of the Thals have kind of juxtaposes and messes up the more human bits it's trying to go? Do you think it works, or do you think that contrast... Because that contrast within the same scene, to me, can sometimes be a bit distracting, and why I think on a first viewing that we mentioned, it can come across as a bit maybe forced.
A little bit, to the extent that when you're watching it, you kind of think, yeah, I do wish we were getting back to the Dalek bit, but it is so very human, that kind of Shakespeare thing. Even the attempt to try and make them human comes across as so human in the way it's trying.
Okay.
It does work. It's just not as exciting as the Dalek stuff. But that's inevitable.
That's us, isn't it? That's us as an audience. Do you think what do you think of the Temesis, the lead Thal, the bloke who looks like William Hartnell with a silly hat?
He's very no.
Do you think the character is because he's very Solomon-like? He Solomonizes the whole thing and sort of makes it all some sort of pretentious parable about how we did this, we did that.
He's a very recognisable stock character. So.
Do you think that distracts from it?
I don't at all. I really do like the Thals. I think they work in the way they're written.
Okay, you think they work
you're not going to get that kind of argument from me. I don't.
Right, I'm going to throw this one. I know you've got an issue with this. Dione, the female Thal, her opinions don't matter.
She goes, when you get a woman to do it, and
I think we should explain this to contrast. Aladon is the lead Thal that Susan meets, and just to cut, I think that first scene is shot really well because there's always a big gap established between the two of them. Even when he goes to hand over the drugs, and it's like, and she pulls back, it's always establishing the gap between them. It's a nice shot. Once again, established with, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, a periscope to make a angle looking up. So the Thal looks really, really big, and Susan looks really small. It's all done quite well there. And he has been sort of, shall we say, was meant to go out or be in relations with a female Thal called Dione, who in this episode has my favourite Thal scene in it, which we'll come on to.
Yeah.
Here she's a bit jealous because the lead Thal has been talking to another woman. That other woman being Susan. Is it a hackneyed attempt at humanity, or does it work?
I think it's a hackneyed attempt at humanity.
Yeah.
But that, I will agree with you there. It's a little bit forced.
That's what I mean. And
it is a bit like they're throwing as many different recognisable human...
I feel like he's trying too hard.
Yeah, he is a bit.
He's trying too hard in that scene. He's throwing so much. But then again, I guess we need to quickly establish these archetypes. You've got a jealous woman. You've got a lead man who's just out for the. That's Aladon I'm referring to. Who's just out for the want of the tried. You've got Temesis, who's a bit more reflective, quiet, understands them as a people. It's trying to establish this all in one scene, which is daring. But does it pay off?
It doesn't quite pay off.
Yeah, I think it gets very close.
Yeah.
But some line, like you sniggered at one line where Ganatus, who's the sort of foul arsehole, as we'll refer to him as, and it comes more clear in future episodes, literally pops his head in and says something like, "Perhaps they're the warriors now," and then leaves.
Yeah, he just goes, "Perhaps they're the warriors now,"
And then
so he
leaves.
walks off like some
And it hit the
awful game
point
show
far
host.
too on the nose. I was like leaving it as perhaps they've changed because, of course, the Thals and the Daleks are in a war. They've changed. They've become
to be
farmers.
fair, what's
Have
his
the
name
Daleks
again?
changed?
That guy. What's his name?
The arsehole.
Yeah.
Ganatus.
Yeah, the problem with Ganatus is that he's put in there as some wisecracker just for the sake of it. Which
I
I
like
think,
him, though, 'cause it
is hilarious. Like at one point, two of the Thals are having a conversation. He's just lying there. He just goes,
He's led there. He's
He's
a bit of a. Should we say player?
he's
I
a
don't
bit
know.
of a player. He's just lying there and he just goes, "Ha!"
It's the first the first sarcastic laugh in Doctor Who.
Which I love.
It's so overdone, but this is the thing. We said it's overdone and it doesn't work, but somehow I found myself laughing at those moments and the moments where I connected with the Thals more than Temosis's big "since we were farmers" and blah 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 blah. I found me connecting with them more with those bits than his
It's
speechy
almost
bits.
like light relief, the Thals scenes, whether that's what they intended or not. That's what it is.
I mean, basically, it's exposition.
Yeah, but it's also done in a way that's a bit lighter and a bit more,
Yeah.
family friendly.
Do you with that innuendo scene and all that sort of stuff? Do you think there's and I don't mean to sort of bring this down to basic political debate, but do you think there's a feminist angle that can be taken from Dione and her? I don't know the mockery of her. Do you think? Is it sexist, Josh?
Why have I become like the sexist police?
Because you, in
These
the first
reviews-
attempt at this review, you were very sneery at it.
Well, it's only when she literally says the line, "Why didn't you get a man to do it?" But
that's
I think
the
that's
point.
the way their society's been brought up.
She's the only woman there,
Yeah.
bar one woman in the background who, when I watched it this morning, I don't tend to be distracted by extras, but she's literally there twiddling with her thumbs, doing nothing, and all the men are there carrying stuff. It's very deliberate, it's very on the nose, and it kind of pinpoints something that we're going to go on to a lot deeper. That the Thals aren't as perfect as they initially seem.
No, they're not. There is a sense of people trying to be too human. I think
Yes.
is to the extent that even humanity's biggest flaws, the sort of things that happen when you try to be this perfect image of humanity.
Perfect masculinity. That's
Yeah.
and that's the problem here, isn't it? And the scene that pinpoints that maybe everything's not right and maybe the women have got a chance is where Dione talks to Ganatus and she says, "Oh," he makes like a wisecrack at her. And she's a bit offended, like, "Oh, I don't know when you're joking or not." And she turns around and says, "Is your brother still afraid of the dark?" And he's sort of like, "My brother isn't afraid of anything," and walks off. And it's a lovely little moment, and that's probably the best moment of humanity for them in a non-pretentious Shakespearean blah blah blah
Yes,
way.
yes.
It works, hits the nail on the head, and just shows they're all individual characters. And I feel I got them all more in that one little exchange than any of the other bits.
Yeah.
It didn't feel so forced there.
No,
because
not
it was just a little aside. It wasn't, let's distract the point of the scene for an aside, if that makes sense. Which, with all ha and all that, it kind of got. It was funny.
It was.
Maybe it was meant to be distracting though, because that's the point. He isn't an arsehole. He would get involved.
Yeah, and he comes across as more of an arsehole when he gets in the audience's way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, guess that's the point.
Yeah.
We're going to see more of that. Anyway. It is very masculine. You know what we're talking about. We're coming at.
Yeah,
It's all.
Let's just say it, right? We think that the Thals are a little bit too Aryan for an episode that is trying to make the Daleks seem like the Nazis.
Before we get onto that, before we get onto the files, because I'm saving this a lot because most of this notes is about that. The Daleks in this episode, it's the first ever use of the term extermination.
Yes.
And I thought I'd bring this up because I wanted to talk about this because, as you know, exterminate is now the tabloid catchphrase for Doctor Who. Whenever you want to talk about Doctor Who, you put in some sort of rubbish pun involving the word exterminate.
Yes.
You throw that word on slippers, on advent calendars, on mugs. It's everywhere. Whenever you think Doctor Who, you think that. But here was the first time we hear it, and not even the phrase exterminate. It had not become a catchphrase yet, it had become an action. And for a viewer at the time, and this is where I'm wondering, and I can't believe I'm saying this, in the context of the episode, does the term extermination work?
Yes.
Hear me out here.
Okay.
Because at the time, bear in mind, we've got a whole generation of people who've just come out of the war. And this episode is not at all subtle what it's trying to do with the allegorizing. There's a lot of allegorizing there. It doesn't hit you over the head. If you look into it like we do, it becomes a bit more apparent. It bubbles to the surface, which is how allegory should be done, I think, personally. But extermination at the time would have been only synonymous with pest removal and the Nazis. The term extermination would have been only known...
Yeah, but that's what they're going for, sure.
Wait, hear me out.
Right.
It would have been only synonymous with the whole, extermination of hundreds of thousands of Jews. It would have been, do you think at the time watching that would have jolted you a lot? That would have made you go, oh, that doesn't fit? Or do you think it was the moment where the audience at home got the Daleks and got what they're going for?
I think it's the moment they got the Daleks and the fact that they're meant to be the villains. So it's what you would talk about. Oh, I don't know if it's the Thals or if it's the villains.
Well, I don't know if the Thals are not villains, but they're not perfect.
No. But it's just sort of saying, are the Daleks villains?
Yes, I was playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, you were arguing.
I was playing devil's advocate.
But I think that's proof that they are the villains, and that word there. And I think exterminate. They had to say something. I think exterminate is a much better term. Like, could you imagine if you can't imagine like cleanse them, for example, being on t-shirts and slippers somehow? I think exterminate had to be the word of choice.
But is it hard when they talk about that? Because it is such a heavy concept to throw in essentially a kids' TV show, and that was my point. It's such a heavy word, and we can't look at it from our modern eyes and look at that scene where they talk about exterminating all the Thals and look at it and go, oh my god, that's such a heavy scene. We just say, oh, that's the Daleks' catchphrase.
Yeah,
whereas at the time, that would be such a, oh god, scene.
We built up to this with 3 episodes, and this is the 3rd episode of seeing... Well,
yeah.
We've had 2 episodes of Dalek build-up, but
yeah.
we know that there's a war on, the stakes need to be high, and you've got limited time in which to put these stakes in.
Yes,
and
develop the files and everything else.
I think the word works. I think we're over-analysing that.
But I mean, is the shock still there now? Because I think watching that at the time, and I tried to put myself in the mindset, you've got a generation who've come up from World War II. That will be the moment where people are going, oh my god, they are totally evil.
Oh yeah, the time
it would be shocking.
It would have had a much more profound effect than it does now. Now it's a shame, really.
That's my point.
This is what sort of
it's hard to view it now.
These things. It's what it's done. It's made us. Our only reaction isn't oh my god the war and oh my god that's horrible. But it's that's the catchphrase.
Exactly. It reminds me of, and pardon me for doing this. We're not supposed to bring up a new series, but it's a point of comparison. In the Zygon invasion. The use of the word radicalise is brought about a lot because of its influence in the news at the time with the whole ISIS allegory in that story.
Yes.
And we mentioned that the word radicalise in that story seemed a bit out of place and a bit too serious for the style of story it was going for. Do you think that that's the modern equivalent of the word exterminate being used in the Daleks? As in... At the time, would you find it jarring?
At the time, I don't know. At the time, I don't think it was out. I am. At the time, it wasn't out of place. It's what they're going for with the monster. Yeah.
No, I stand by it. I'm once again playing devil's advocate to get a juicy opinion.
Stop playing devil's advocate. I hate people who play devil's advocate.
I love it, and I love that they're being so bold.
Yeah.
It's bold. It's laying your cards out in such a heavy way, and I think. That, only viewing in context, can we really appreciate how important it would have been to have the scenes with the whole Susan and the funny stuff with it. We can only appreciate that in context, and that's our big problem watching it as a modern audience. So basically, if you're watching this now, you're doing it wrong. Go back, travel back in time to the 60s and watch it then, and then you'll really get it.
Nice.
That's the real...
Bang on.
There's also a really good... section of dialogue. You mentioned you like the scene with Susan writing to the Daleks.
Yeah,
we've talked about the funny bits in this, but the line,
very well.
I will read it here. I can only ask, I can't accept for them. And the Daleks change the word and say, instead, why don't you write, we expect you to. This is talking about the Thals wanting to come. I think, and we mentioned this, I think, in the previous episode, the pragmatism of the Daleks.
Yeah, everything is very, very deliberate and very much...
At the moment, there's no big world-ending rants.
No.
Which I think is the better kind of Dalek. Here, it is literally the choice of a word. We can't accept for you, and they go, well, we expect you to be here. It's very clever clipped psychology, I think is the word, of trying to understand the human mind and trying to use dialogue to manipulate people, but not in an overly obvious way. There's something very clever going on in those few lines, which doesn't happen as much with the Daleks as perhaps it should.
Yes.
But here, I think it works, and it really it gives them something a bit more. They're really thinking about what they're doing, because it's in a previous scene where we laughed at it. What was the line we laughed at with the Daleks? Oh, the starving line. What was the line?
Yeah. Will the Thals be willing to starve? No.
Yeah, it's so good because it's that Simon mentality, but it's using it in a way to expose their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I think that's important with the Daleks in this. They have weaknesses. They don't understand.
Which is good.
They give their game away as well, because when the Dalek comes to the door to give them some food, they go, "We are willing to help the Thals, which is what you want us to do." It's like someone really struggling to understand how human beings' mental process work, and that gives it away. And Ian goes, "How did they know that?" It's like the moment of, "Oh crap, they didn't even realise they'd been found out." You could say it's very simple writing, but it's moments like that scattered throughout this that the Daleks are a bit pathetic. The little things trapped in boxes that don't understand anything because they're so hell bent on achieving their goal. You know you keep saying Shakespearean.
Yeah.
In relation to Thals. What do we mean by that, Josh?
Very wordy, kind of elongated speech and use of language. It's just very grand, grand speech.
I'm gonna mention this now. Here's the line I wrote down. "I have never struggled against the inevitable. It's a vain occupation." That's a line by Nemesis. And some of this stuff here is about how the Thals don't really... And I'm going to go for this. We mentioned Aryan. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are you ready for this? Germany.
Yes.
1940-something, 1930-something or other. Nobody struggled against the inevitable. People did, but the majority of people were kind of forced into it via propaganda. And in this episode, the Daleks are the propagandists. They are the ones saying, "Come and get food! Come and get this! It's going to be amazing!"
Not quite like a market seller.
No, but we will give them... And even... I forgot to mention this. I'm just going to bring that as a tangent. But that whole idea of them using people, the great close-up, and Richard Martin, I know we said he's done some dodgy close-ups, but the close-up on the Dalek's eye, as it says... We will give them the false indication of care, of sleep, of food, and it shows them that they're working their way around, what they're going to do. And that's the same thing with the Thals, what they're doing here. They're putting this big watermark up, going, hey, come over here, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be great. Similar to what Mr. Adolf was doing at the time. I can't believe I'm saying it in such a literal manner, but it's to get across the point. And then basically they do that, but there was... Because it seems so tempting. It seems so tempting to everybody. It was the sort of...
Especially in such hard times.
Yeah, you're seeing this. You're seeing this. You're seeing it now.
Where you're going.
And Temesis's line, about struggling against the inevitable, it's a really nice line. It can be interpreted in a really positive manner, but it can also be interpreted in quite a negative way as well. Oh, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Just let it happen. The same thing with the whole relationship thing between Dione and Aladon. You get the sense he's not really fussed, but because, since a young child she's always liked him, I guess it's going to happen. It's this whole idea that they're a staid society stuck in their ways. I mean, come on, they farm. They're a bunch of farmers. I mean, mustn't be that exciting. There mustn't be many steamy nights under the crops. And they just don't struggle. They just go, "Oh, hey, well, this will be perfect. Let's go and do it."
Yeah.
They're both as bad as each other, and
in different ways. And I don't think they're overly Aryan anymore.
But I think the overly Aryanism is they're falling for that sugar-coated pill. They're becoming the Aryan race. They're becoming what the Daleks, aka Hitler, want them to be. Do you see where I'm going for?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
It's very pretentious. And when we first read this episode, we couldn't get. We just thought it was such a juxtaposition, such a problematic. The
so literal aesthetic of them looking like the Aryan race was just a bit too much
for us to take. Yeah. And it kind of throw a judgment of the episode. But I think this is how I'm going to take it. And also, I think it's very clear that Aladon, who here is our perfect Thal. He's the one that Susan sees and is like, you said last week when we first reviewed it, and I think like this again. You think she fancies him a little?
Oh yeah. I thought a little bit. Yeah, I thought she had the hots for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I could get Aladon.
But I think he was attracted to her as well. Is what?
Why? Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to go for. I think that's a bit where it falls flat a little.
Yeah, I think it's trying to get that very stereotypical, almost Grease musical-esque style of the males and the males and the female going, oh, I really quite like him, and then the males having laddish banter about how old is she?
Yeah,
all of that. I think,
but it doesn't shoot the Shakespearean. That's what I mean. That laddish banter about how old is she. When I first watched that, it really shook me up because I was like, hang on,
did you have chills that were multiple?
No, it just struck me like this is Doctor Who. You know what I mean? It really comes across as odd. I'm not saying Doctor Who shouldn't tackle that, because sometimes Doctor Who is best when it does really quite things like that. But it was just so odd. And I think, I don't know if that's what they're going. I don't know. Tell us what you think. Where can they contact us, Josh, to tell us what they think?
They can contact us on Facebook or Twitter.
Where can they contact us on Twitter? At
DrWhoTCR. You say it again.
You can contact us on Twitter at DrWhoTCR. TCR on capitals.
Apologies, I don't use Twitter.
But anyway, point. Nazis.
Yes.
No. Wow. The guy, Aladon, who's meant to be our big hero, our big love interest, maybe?
Yeah.
He, in the scene where they talk about how they've changed and maybe the Daleks have changed as well after having this big war, he says, perhaps, as and it's a cutaway shot as well, so it's not like it's a long shot, you're not going to focus on it. It's a deliberate cutaway of him going, perhaps they've changed, which perhaps they've not.
He's a little bit suspicious, and you needed that.
Yep.
From Aladala Ding Dong.
And this is my other point. The Thals say the Daleks seem so suspicious. And then them in that line, and also with that, perhaps they're the warriors now. I know that was a bit hackneyed, but those bits establish that the Thals are just as suspicious of them as, maybe not as suspicious as the Daleks are, but there's still a suspicion, just like the Daleks are suspicious of them.
It's creating its own mirror image. It's very much creating two different sides that are both as similar as they are different.
Yeah,
it is exposition, and
it's exposition. Do you think it's exposition done well?
Yes.
You're gonna throw it out and
I'm gonna throw it out and say that straight away. I think it is done well, because we're getting a glimpse into both sides very well, and the episode leaves you with the knowledge that something is going to happen. And I think that's all you need from exposition.
Yeah, that's very...
It's not over-egged, and it's not underused. It nearly goes too far and too long, but I think it just about holds itself together, and I think it is exposition done well.
Yeah. I think... no, I just found the correct version of the innuendo image. Working towards the same end.
Yeah.
It is... That's... And I'm going to bring this up straight away. We mentioned earlier... We didn't get the Hartnell era as a kid. I don't think I got it as well as I thought I did. But now watching that, we get a whole different thing. And lines like that, where you realise, oh my God, it's an innuendo. That never struck me when I was a kid. I just thought it was a really rubbish joke.
It's not really a kid's audience, I feel like, that it focuses on.
I think, and I know... Thank you as well, the Mad Texan who commented this on episode 2 of our review, and we discussed the nature of Doctor Who being a kids' show. And I've always maintained it's a family show, and the reason is because of how it tackles these themes. It never sits you down and says, this is racism. It's doing it in a really allegorical way, which expects us to understand and expects us to look at it rather than just being like, oh, by the way, it never tells us.
Oh, No, I agree. There's nothing to say to that, really.
Also, this is one thing that you didn't have much to say on last week. I was wondering if you did this week. The Daleks, they said the Daleks used to be teachers.
Yeah, I think you could argue that's all. They used to be a group that showed so much promise, and we followed them, and then they let us down. Now hard times are here, and we're going to follow them again, and inevitably, really, they're going to let us down, but we don't realise that yet, because we have so much hope, just like we did in the old days, blah, 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 Nazi Germany, like that.
Yeah. They're also... I think it's very key that both of them are very close-knit societies. They're both very close-knit. What was that comment you made, which I think, don't know if we can repeat on air, but we will. Because we're on YouTube. You said, I bet they've all each other.
Oh, no, we're not putting that in. We're not putting that in. Absolutely not.
It's staying in.
It's not staying in,
It's staying
Ryan.
In. Yeah, I edit this.
Oh, it seems like a group of people, the Thals, who have probably just had mass orgies.
Our Aryan perfect race. He's perfect.
It's all very slap on the back, sort of. Hey, you're looking good. I am looking good. We're all looking good.
How do you think a modern audience would take this episode?
Um,
I think they'd struggle more than they would do with episodes 1 and 2 of the Daleks.
Yeah, probably.
Why do you think that is?
Just because if you can't engage with the very slow exposition of the characters, if you don't like the
Do you think this is the slowest episode yet?
Yes.
I can agree. Most people say the cavemen, but I think the problem with this episode, and I'm going to say, I don't think the episode's perfect, but I think it's got a lot of stuff in there. It's a lot of great moments. Some of them which we've glossed over as, but mostly thanks to the Daleks and our central cast. But I think there's too many disparate elements in this that they're trying to force together. Sometimes disparate elements within lines, within scenes, that sometimes throw you off. But you can see it's trying to be deliberate, but something just doesn't work. Something just doesn't make them gel together. It needs a greater internal logic to it, which the first couple of episodes had. Remember when we mentioned the cavemen story was more of an atmosphere story than a character story?
Yeah.
That whole nature, there was so much consistency in that, and that's why I don't think the first cavemen episodes felt like Doctor Who. There was too much consistency, because Doctor Who is always about bringing things together that don't work.
Yeah.
Shop window dummies that end up being killers. The TARDIS itself, it's a police box and can travel anywhere. It's all about things that don't work and fitting them together. The Dalek story, part 1, was about sort of loneliness, like the Ian and Barbara not knowing where they're going, and you mix that with, what's the opposite of loneliness? Excitement. And of course it's exciting, because they're discovering a new planet! The Survivors is all about, oh god, we're trapped, what are we going to do? But oh my god, here's a new race for us to find. What are they doing? What about that? Disparate things coming together. Here, in The Escape, it's almost like you've got the nice mixture that we said of Shakespeare file dialogue with clipped Dalek dialogue.
Yeah.
That's the big distinction here. But then the files are also colloquial. They also talk like human beings. And it muddies that water. It just kind of makes, they're trying to add shades of grey, but it doesn't come across as it should have done.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. And each episode is trying to sort of do its own unique thing. And that's good. That's exactly what you need. And it is that kind of economic writing that we should be putting in to this stuff. Yeah, I'm
happy with that. I've got one final quote here, which just to back up my whole point about the files being pretty bad. Aladon they say about Aladon, Temesis says to Aladon, I wish I could be as objective as you.
Okay, go on. What's your analysis on that?
Temesis is he's got a bigger world view. He's the old ancient sage sort of character that you see in lots of different media. And this whole I wish could be the whole story is playing on objectivity, and I think the whole you look beautiful, therefore you must be beautiful. It's quite simple, but actually there's something deeper to it, as we said.
Yeah, with the
Aryan thing,
which we won't keep banging on about, but yeah.
I think we've covered that good and proper.
Yeah.
I think we've covered that nice, good and proper. Josh, your moment of the week.
Moment of the week has to be the one. I think it's the sarcastic laugh for me.
Really?
There are more obvious moments, like when I thought the moment where they open up the Dalek lid and
which we only touched on, interestingly,
which is a brilliant moment because not seeing something I think makes you more afraid. Yes. But I thought the sarcastic laugh because I'd seen all of these other moments before when I'd watched it, and sort of coming back to stuff. I'm looking for bits that surprised me, and as a kid, I didn't really get what the sarcastic laugh sort of was, and I think that moment particularly works in this episode.
I like lots of the moments with the Daleks, and they're sort of trying to understand humanity but not, and that's funny. I think it's the noise thing, the stop that noise to Susan. Yeah. That's my favourite moment because it's funny, but it's not overtly funny. It makes sense in the context, I just like that. It's my other moment would probably be the same as you. If we were going for something more serious, it would be the opening the lid. But I think it's moments of that light relief, which now, because we're getting further into Doctor Who, we need to see some more of that. It's not all about, oh my god, how are we going to get out of here? It's more enjoying their surroundings, relishing a bit, but still not being overconfident and cocky with them, which is, I think, when Doctor Who does it wrong. When you feel like someone could waltz into a surrounding, it's like, oh, I'll just make quip, and nothing will change.
Yeah.
That's where it works, because it comes from the actual characters rather than somebody being egotistical. I think that's where that was. Cliffhanger watch, Josh.
Cliffhanger.
I think we would touch on this.
We did touch on it. So where the sort of tentacle comes out from underneath the thing. It's a bit of a shame that they're revealing what's inside, but
I think it's needed.
it's needed. It's a sort of oh my
Why
god
do you wish
moment.
they hadn't? I don't know.
I don't really. Maybe just there isn't. Yeah, they had to do it. So it grates on me a little bit. But
No, I think this is the only time it does. I think this is
watching
the only time it works.
yeah, watching it at the time, I think would have been brilliant. I think it's a good, solid cliffhanger.
No, I think that's very good. Josh, your final score.
I'm gonna give it a 9.
Whoa! You've really changed your view on that.
Yeah,
What happens in that?
looking at it, I think I really enjoy the Thals scenes. I think Daleks.
Despite our qualms with them, I think it's mainly. I'm going to throw this. This is what you think. Do you think they work as a whole rather than even if individual bits sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do, I think it works, and it was nice to be able to laugh at some of these moments genuinely.
I was never laughing ironically.
Yeah.
I was never laughing like, oh, look, I silly lies. It was deliberate.
Yeah.
I think that works. But does you think that comes from maybe having an actor being the director?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think he very much was able to tap into what these moments would
I think
mean.
that was maybe a bit more prominent in this than definitely the previous 2 Dalek episodes.
Yeah, and he does have some strengths in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's very much. There's also he's also. It's more about, as I said, with that crane shot. It's more about the development of shots rather than making a shot that maybe just looks nice on screen. Because some of them I said during the fight scene where they're all faking stuff that it could have been shot a bit better. It's just, it's more about the development of shots, moving them. For example, did you notice? I know this is getting on topic, but I'm just going to cover it as it's coming into my head. The camera that's viewing Susan when she's sitting down talking about the Thals is shot from straight above.
Yes, yeah,
looking down at her
I
head.
did.
How would have that been done at the time? Because you didn't have overhead cameras.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure how he did that. Maybe we'll never know. I think that's definitely. I was like, how did they do that? Because you can't do a periscope and then put it to the roof.
Maybe
So
just a
how
different angle or something. Or maybe they
not
sat her in front. I don't know.
I don't know. If anybody knows, tell us. Because I know he does a similar sort in the Web Planet, which
Yeah.
is a bit. I don't know how he did that, but very good. At least he's. I admire him because in interviews he come across as he's trying to really shake up the BBC and be a bit bold. But sometimes I think in doing that, things do sometimes get missed along the line.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of trying and a lot of pushing. Hence some scenes that maybe don't work as well. But you're going with a 9.
Yeah.
That's interesting. See, I'm now doubting my score because when I came here, in my head I had a 7.
Okay.
In my head I had a 7 because I felt some of the bits, whilst I could see what they were going for, it would have been so much more if some of those lines didn't detract. But discussing it, I think I'm going to go for an 8 for this episode.
Okay.
I think
I'll accept that.
there's enough nice character little bits to raise it. Like the Doctor putting his arm around Barbara at the end. It's the first bit of genuine, like, oh, that's really lovely. Josh was putting a bottle on his head pretending to be a Dalek. There's enough, like the bit at the end, I said Barbara is like, oh, I've done it, I've made some mud. And then the Doctor's like, wow, that's great, Babs. You know, there's lots of. It's an episode made up of moments. If the moment, it's an episode made up. It's an episode made up of little bits, and if the little bits weren't there, I think we could very easily be saying. And just being a bit disinterested, if you see what I mean by that.
I see what you mean.
It's the actor's director thing again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe getting the actor out in it a bit more than the visuals.
Yeah,
I think
which
that's
is-
definitely
which- I
definitely
think
what's
so.
well. So I'm gonna plump with an 8.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Are you gonna batter me in the street now
No,
for giving
not
an 8?
at all.
rather than
Not at
9?
all. I think that's perfectly valid.
Where can they find us?
They can find us on Facebook
Yeah, at
at the Complete Review
what we're reviewing.
TCL Doctor Who.
Yeah,
The
what
Complete
where can they
Review.
find us on Twitter?
I can't remember it. You tell them.
You can find us on Twitter at drwho, all capitals for this one, TCR.
that one.
That one. Find us there, and hopefully we'll see you next week for
Are we
the
not putting links in like the description or something for this?
Yeah, find links in the description. There'll be links in the
There we
description.
go.
There we
That's
go.
more
That's better.
Yeah.
And you'll see us next week as we're going to be ambushed.
Yes.
We are. We're going to
The
be
ambush.
The ambush.
Yes. What a good episode. Or is it?
Is it? Is it? Well, I guess that leaves one thing. That's adios from me.
And adios from me. It's not a good one. See you later.
Is it a good? It is. I liked it.
No, I'm thinking of the ordeal. Yeah, the ambush is okay.
The ambush is good. Bye then.
Or is it?